Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. This world is filled with news stories that don't make any sense. I get bent out of shape when I read an article that's downright ignorant. And when I say ignorant, I mean lacking in basic education. The worst part is that these articles are getting wide circulation and feeding misinformation on a large scale. On today's show, we're talking about one such article about the condo market published earlier this week in the Huffington Post. I've seen numerous articles that are similar, speaking about the fall in rents in New York, San Francisco, and other expensive coastal markets. The article is entitled, "Canada's Condo Markets Face Perfect Storm as Rental Rates Tank and Costs Jump." The story goes on to say, add yet another to the many imbalances in Canada's pandemic economy. Renters are catching big breaks as rental rates drop, while condo owners, particularly investors, are looking at potentially rough times ahead. In fact, for condo owners, just about everything that could go wrong, from bad construction and rising insurance costs to rental rates that can't cover mortgage payments, is going wrong. Now, stories like this are just so ridiculous. It's a lengthy story talking about the plight of investors. They imply that the pandemic is to blame for the plight of these condo investors. The implication is that these were good investments to begin with, and the pandemic turned them into bad investments. The fact is, these investments were never good investments. They would have never met my criteria. Let's look at some specific examples. In Toronto, right now, there are about 30,000 condos for rent in the core of the city. That's a lot of inventory. No surprise that rental rates have fallen. A review of the listings show that many of the apartments are furnished. My interpretation is that many of these furnished units were aiming at the short-term rental market. Like the hotel market, the short-term rental market in the core of the city is taking a huge hit. Owners are trying to recover some income by getting a long-term tenant. Now, the City of Toronto attracts about 125,000 new residents a year in a traditional year, and there's usually about 35,000 units of new construction. That imbalance between demand and supply is one of the main reasons that prices have been continually rising in Toronto. But immigration is down this year because of the pandemic, so fewer people are moving into the city, and a lot of that new supply coming into the market is competing with existing inventory. Let's look at the metrics for a single building. This example is indicative of hundreds of buildings across the city. We're going to look at the building at the address of number 10 Navy Wharf. It's a few blocks from the waterfront, very close to the Sky Dome, where the Toronto Blue Jays play, and the CN Tower, which is the landmark tallest tower in the city. There's a number of units for sale in this luxury downtown building at number 10 Navy Wharf. It's one of 4 buildings in the Harborview Estates complex, comprising a total of 1,500 units. The 30,000 square foot amenities, their club, is one of the biggest reasons why residents chose to live there. Units for sale range in price from $500,000 to over $1 million, and a basic one-bedroom apartment ranges in price from $550,000 to $700,000, depending on the floor and the view. The tallest building is at 49 stories. There's a number of units for rent listed in this building, and the asking rents are in the range of between $1,600 a month up to $1,900 a month. Now, for those of you who've been listening to this podcast for a while, no one's going to be shocked to hear that $1,600 a month in rent on a $500,000 investment isn't going to work. You don't need to pull out your calculator to know that those ratios make no sense. And even if rents were $2,200 a month or $2,500 a month, the numbers are silly. But here's the crazy thing. Realtors all over are selling these types of properties to unsuspecting amateur investors. These are the professionals, the doctors, lawyers, dentists, engineers who have managed to put away some money aside over the years and can now afford some additional properties. And yeah, they won't cash flow, but the history of appreciation has meant all you needed to do was sit on them and the market appreciation would take care of everything. Those years when the market prices increased by 13%, 17%, 18%, 20%, the investor felt like they were a genius. Maybe the memory of the down years had faded. Maybe the down years were a distant statistic that could be explained away. You know, that kind of explanation. That'll never happen again here. See, when you invest in shares of Tesla, because you look at the last few years and the stock has continually gone up, you might buy it simply on the speculation that it's going to go up in price. You might decide to buy shares of General Electric. You tell yourself GE is now a bargain because after having fallen 75% from its high a few years ago, it's a bargain today. See, all of these plays are pure speculation of the same type that Wall Street investors have been using every day for years. These investments are not professional investments. They're speculations, and they're not based on fundamentals. When I make an investment in a property or a new construction project, I'm very clear on where the profit's going to be generated. That doesn't mean I won't encounter surprises or changes in market conditions, but at least I'm clear on the day-to-day cash flow. I'm not speculating that prices will go up simply because they've always gone up. And when I underwrite projects, there's no speculation about the value going up. The investment has to make sense today in today's dollars with today's market conditions. As you think about that, don't speculate on the future. Have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.